Well, God's blessings to you. Today, I want to talk about a systematic theology, and that is actually the title of this systematic theology. It's called A Systematic Theology. J.Oliver Buswell is the theologian and seminary professor who authored this. And let me just talk about, you might be wondering, well, of all the systematic theologies to feature, why are you featuring this one? Well, I have found this theologian to be the most aligned with my own theology, and I could go on and on about all of the doctrines that he lines up with my own convictions, but I want to instead focus a little bit more on Buswell himself before I get into the details of this particular volume. Buswell, just like myself, another coincidence, besides being so aligned with my own personal theology and my own convictions, is originally from Wisconsin, as I am. So let's find out a little bit about his history. He actually was he had the honor of becoming the third president of the very prestigious Wheaton College. And for anyone who knows much about seminaries, Wheaton is one of the best. It was one of the best. It still is one of the best. And Wheaton has grown to become just a wonderful both college and seminary. And Buswell was actually kind of a young guy when he became the president. He actually, interesting story, he was actually invited there. He was in his early 30s when he was invited there to give a series of lectures. And the administration was so impressed with his lecturing and the content, etc., that they said, and they had an opening, and they said, would you be willing to put your name in the hat to become president? We were very interested, and he did. I believe he was only 33 years old at the time. This goes back a ways. 1926, I think, was the year he was chosen as the third president of Wheaton College. It's a position that he actually held until 1940, so he had quite a long tenure there, at least 15 years. After that, he went to Faith Theological Seminary. And we don't really need to talk much about the reason for his leaving Wheaton, other than the fact that it was a very successful tenure there. Then he moved on, as I said, to Faith Theological Seminary, and he was president of systematic theology there. And he actually began the foundations for the writing of this volume that I'm about to talk about in a minute here. In 1941, he became president of the National Bible Institute, and then later Shelton College, that's in New York City. After Shelton, in 1956, after another 15-year run, he took up a seminary position, duties over at Covenant College and Seminary as well. And so he's mostly known, let me just get the camera narrowed there for you and balanced for you. He's mostly known as a seminary professor, and we'll go over some of his works as well. Well, we could do that right now. He is the author of many books. Problems in the Prayer Life, you may have heard of that one. The Lamb of God series, which was, I believe, a 3 or 4 volume series. Behold Him was another one of his works. What is God? Sin and Atonement, The Christian Life, among others. And atonement is definitely one of the things that Professor Buswell has written on at length in this volume as well. And we'll get into that in just a second. His last stop was in St. Louis, Missouri, and he was actually had that position when this book came out. He was the dean of the graduate faculty like I said, at Covenant College and Seminary in St. Louis, Missouri. That was the position he held up until 1956. Now, this book came out in 1962, and this particular issue that I have is a 2 volumes in one. So originally, when this systematic theology came out, it was a 2-volume set, and then in 1971 they combined it. Zondervan combined it into a very convenient one-volume set with both volumes in it. It's not abridged, but it is a very convenient two-in-one volume. And originally, as I said, it was 1962 is the year that this came out. And we'll get into this a little bit more. I just want to talk a little bit more about Buswell and how excited I was as a student of theology to learn about this great man of God, because of the fact that virtually every, like I said at the top of the video, virtually every conviction he has lines up with mine. And you might be asking, okay, well, what are those convictions? Well, a few of them, substitutionary atonement. He does a fantastic job of unpacking substitutionary atonement. Also talking about the history of why that was controversial amongst liberal theologians. And he pretty much makes a stellar biblical case, as the Bible does, for substitutionary atonement. But beyond that, his view of the atonement is really Trinitarian, as it should be, and really focuses on, it's Christ-centered, and it focuses on the divinity of Christ as well as the humanity of Christ during the incarnation. So he is definitely aligned to my understanding of the atonement and substitutionary atonement. He also has a wonderful, he is not a dispensationalist, but he does believe in premillennialism. And that is, I won't say that that's rare, but that is exactly how I am as well in my convictions. There are most times when you look at premillennialists, they are dispensational. But Buswell is not dispensational whatsoever. He is solidly reformed and has an excellent treatment on the covenants, all of the covenants, as well as the first and foremost, the primary covenant of the covenant of redemption. And that, of course, some of that material is covered here as well. So that's just a quick flyover of just a few of the doctrines and theological convictions that Buswell has. Of course, there's dozens more, and this is a wonderful systematic theology that is very thorough, very readable, very accessible, and very lucid. Let's take a look at some of his education. Buswell is a graduate of the University of Minnesota. He got his undergraduate there before moving on to the seminary, where he got his BD over at McCormick Theological Seminary, and then eventually he got his master's at NYU. Got his the master's was acquired at University of Chicago, I should say. His PhD came from NYU. Very impressive resume, and you'll see that he's got some of those degrees on his wall as well. The honorary degree of Doctor of Divinity was accomplished by him back in 1972, and that was, I believe, I'm not sure, but I believe that was at Evansville Theological College, and it may have been in Dallas, but he did spend some time in Dallas as well. So this man of God has been around, and he has written a tremendous amount, and he has been a gift to all of the seminary students who have been under his teaching. And the next thing we would love to do, and it'll be kind of a project of mine, is to seek out some of his students to see what they have to say about J.Oliver Buswell. I will say this, now I almost kind of mentioned this early on. Buswell, like every single one of us on this planet, was a sinner, saved by grace. And another thing that I can relate to him with is that he had such passion, a burning heart for his convictions, a burning heart for doctrine and theology, that sometimes he could be overzealous. And sometimes his temperament could go over the top. And so that did lead to a challenging tenure at Wheaton in those 15 years. But just one more thing that I could relate to him, and I believe that this is a man who is hailed and respected within the Reformed community and within the church community. So there it is, a systematic theology. If you're interested in getting this, a systematic theology of the Christian religion by J.Oliver Buswell, it is out of print. I believe it went out of print in the early 80s, maybe late 70s. As I said, this is a 1971 reprint of the original 1962 two-volume set. But if you do some searching, you might be able to find this at one of the used bookstores or one of the used Christian websites out there that sell used books. So if you have any other questions or comments on this, please feel free to jump in and type those in. And don't forget to hit the subscribe button, as we always love new subscribers to the channel. God's blessings to you.